HBO released that first tease called Dragonstone, the quick one, where ice and fire clash and there seems to form a wall in and around the neck or the middle of Westeros. Many fans are speculating on there being a new Dragonglass Wall in Season 8. Some are even tying this to the oily blackstone found in Ashaii, stuff that was used to make the Seastone Chair, the foundation of the Hightower, the 5 forts of ET, and the Black Wall in Volantis. The black basalt walls of Blackhaven and Moat Cailin have a similar oily appearance when wet, and Moat Cailin's right there at the neck, where some fans believe that this new Dragonglass Wall is going to be made. But forget the trailer. There's a really big clue from all the way back in Season 2, specifically this scene here. And we're not just revisiting the scene since Charlie Chaplin's granddaughter, Una Chaplin's one of the most beautiful people ever, but because her show-only character Talisa's backstory is one of the most beautiful backstories in the show. And there's a hidden meaning to all these Robb and Talisa scenes, which just so happen to occur in the middle of Westeros, south of the Neck, north of the God's Eye, right around the place where fans are speculating that they raised this new Dragonglass Wall. So Robb meets Talisa, who's healing men after the Battle of Oxcross. Robb assumes that she's highborn, and we'll find out later that he's right, but she responds with this.
What if I told you my father sold lace on the Long Bridge, and my mother, my brother, and I lived with him above our shop?
Call you a liar.
Talisa then visits Robb in this scene, where it's highlighted that she's healing men on both sides of the war.
I've been treating your wounded men.
And my enemies, as some of my bannermen are fond of mentioning.
They are not my enemies.
That's what I tell my bannermen.
She asks Robb for more supplies once he goes to the crag, but instead, he invites her to come with him, and he says this.
I want the wounded men to be treated well. All the wounded men.
Before they return, they have this key chat here, where she asked if his betrothed is beautiful, and he says he's never met her. What's her name? Frey, I suppose. I don't know her first name. They flirt a little bit, it's pretty cute, and then they say this.
And you're marrying her for a bridge.
An important bridge.
Robb points out that he was betrothed before they killed his father, Lord Eddard. It was at a time when Robb thought that they can march south and rescue Lord Eddard in time, but only if they cross that bridge, the Bridge of the Twins, Lord Walder Frey's bridge. Robb then tangents into praise of his father, how Lord Eddard
Once told me that being a lord is like being a father, except you have thousands of children, and you worry about all of them.
The farmers plowing the fields are yours to protect. The charwoman scrubbing the floors, yours to protect. The soldiers you order into battle.
He told me he woke with fear in the morning and went to bed with fear in the night.
I didn't believe him. I asked him, how can a man be brave if he's afraid?
That is the only time a man can be brave, he told me.
That last line's a nod to the first scene in the books, where Robb said that the deserter was brave, but Jon said that the deserter was afraid, and Ned tells Bran that that is the only time a man can be brave. So this was a nice little Easter egg to that. But it's also an Easter egg to a thought that Lady Cat has in the books about Robb, how Robb's learned so much from Ned. Each day, Robb asked one of his lords to join him so that they might confer as they marched. He honored every man in turn, showing no favorites, listening as his lord father had listened, weighing the words of one against the other. Later on, Robb and Talisa have this scene here, where she tells him her backstory, and her backstory melts his heart. They make love and then they get secretly married, but let's go back to what she said.
How did you go from reciting Valyrian poetry to sawing off men's feet?
And she tells him a story about her little brother. It was the hottest day of the year, so they went swimming.
The rich, the poor, we were all there, naked, screaming, racing to the little islands.
All of a sudden, she saw her little brother face down in the water, so she pulled him onto the riverbank, screamed at him, and shook him.
And he was dead. Just dead.
Then, a slave ran over and he pushed her out of the way.
You have to understand, for a slave to push a highborn girl, that's death for the man, a terrible death.
But he did just so.
Just so.
He pushed her out of the way and he performed chest compressions on her little brother until he spat out the water, cried out, and the slave cradled his head and told him to be calm. Talisa decided two things that day. She would not waste her years planning dances and masquerades with the other noble ladies.
And when I came of age, I would never live in a slave city again.
So that's why she became a healer. Now remember, there's a cornerstone to Robb and Talisa's conversations in the show, namely bridges, because they're falling in love, but Robb is already betrothed to a Frey girl since he had needed use of Walder Frey's bridge, known as the Crossing. And
Walder Frey is a dangerous man to cross.
as you can see, we're going to be diving into some wordplay to reveal the truth about this new Dragonglass Wall. First, let's go over the tangible. There are a lot of bridges in this story. The Bridge of Dream, the Bridge of Skulls, the Long Bridge of Volantis, crossing at the Twins, the covered bridge between the Armory and the Great Keep at Winterfell.
It's a tough decision. Take the bridge and risk being seen, or cross the Great Water.
Silence, Kingslayer.
The bridge where Bran and Jaime danced, the Balon's Bridge, the Bridge of Boats, and the bridge where they found the direwolf pups. Many bridges were burned during the War of the Five Kings, and so were many figurative bridges.
You gave him your word. Treat your oaths recklessly, and your people will do the same.
I think you lost this war the day you married her. I lost another to the Kingslayer, strangled with a chain.
I grieve for your sons, my lord.
I don't want your grief, I want my vengeance. And you stole it from me.
Those boys didn't kill your sons. I saw Harry die on the battlefield, and Torrent
Was strangled by the Kingslayer. They were his kids.
They were boys!
She killed them as much as I.
My mother had nothing to do with this.
Our king in the north. Or should I call him the king who lost the north?
Kill me and be cursed. You are no king of mine.
The Karstarks are gone. Almost half our forces.
They won't forgive the killing of their lord.
Your mother's right. If you do this, the Karstarks will abandon you.
I've won every battle, but I'm losing this war.
Lord Frey requires a formal apology for your violation of your sacred oath to marry one of his daughters.
Of course, he deserves as much. I was in the wrong.
Pyat Free claimed that Qarth is the bridge between the East and the West.
May I ask, Your Grace, how long you plan to stay at Castle Black? Are you bored of us already?
Then Jon thinks that he's walking on a bridge of ice with an abyss on either side, in terms of Tywin thinking he's given Stannis too much, and Stannis thinking that it's not enough. George R. R. Martin also once used the common phrase of burning bridges. The physical bridges often symbolize walls, separating two sides. And of course, this bridge, where they found the direwolf pups, where we saw a divide between the Stark kids and Ned in terms of what to do with those pups. Sometimes the characters close divides by acting as bridges. Here's an example from the covered bridge. So Jon and Arya watched Robb and Joffrey come to hate one another while they're sparring down below. That leads Ned to suggest to Cat that he brings Bran south with him, telling Cat that Bran can build a relationship with Joffrey and in time, bridge the distance between Robb and Joffrey. House Stark would be safer for it. Bronn bridged the gap between Jaime and Tyrion, Brienne bridged the gap between Jaime and Sansa.
So Jaime will be there. You said he treated you honorably before.
Tyrion bridged the gap between Jon and Dany, and Jon bridged the gap between Gendry and the Brotherhood in Season 7. But the two bridges involved in the clue that we're analyzing today are Walder Frey's bridge, the Twins, and the Long Bridge of Volantis. The Twins, also known as the Crossing, is a key piece of infrastructure, especially during times of war, which is why it's scary to think of Bronn getting the Twins as his two castles, since Bronn's a former sellsword.
If I told you to murder an infant girl, say, still at her mother's breast, would you do it without question?
Without question? No. I'll ask how much.
And of course, you've got the clue hidden in the Lord of the Crossing game, alluding to the Night King's real name. Check out that video. But here's the big one, or the long one, the Long Bridge of Volantis. Talisa's a highborn lady. Robb Stark knew it. But Talisa tried to pretend that she had grown up poor on the Long Bridge. That's this one here. That's the bridge where Ser Jorah captured Tyrion at the brothel in the show. That bridge separates the two halves of Volantis, the rich and the poor. Volantis is a city of slavery, 5 slaves for every freedman there, so no bueno. And don't forget that everyone in the Red Temple, priests like Thoros and Melisandre, they're all slaves. They were all sold to the Red Temple as children.
Her dragons are fire made flesh, a gift from the Lord of Light. But you heard all of this before, haven't you? On the Long Bridge of Volantis.
So Volantis is a slave city. The rich half of the city is home to the Old Blood, people who can prove unbroken descent from Old Valyria, and they isolate themselves by the black walls, oily blackstone. Walls are built to keep people out, or keep people in, but either way, walls are created as a divide, as opposed to bridges which are built to connect. Walls and bridges are opposite.
The dragons will purify non-believers by the thousands, burning their sins and flesh away.
Ideally, we'd avoid purifying too many non-believers. The Mother of Dragons has followers of many different faiths.
Thankfully, not everyone in the story has put up such hateful walls as the Red Priest from the cult of R'hllor. Jon is the Song of Ice and Fire, so it's no coincidence that Jon acts as a bridge many times over.
But if we're going to survive this winter together...
You want us to man the castles for you?
Yesterday's wars don't matter anymore. Will you stand beside me, Ned and Alice, now and always?
Now and always.
If we go all the way back to the very first chapter, Jon acts as a bridge at the bridge where they found the direwolf pups.
Better a quick death. They won't last without their mother.
Right. Give it here.
No!
Put away your blade.
I'm sorry, Bran.
But Jon bridged that gap between them.
Lord Stark. There are 5 pups. One for each of the Stark children. The direwolf is a sigil of your house. We were meant to have them.
And even at 7, Bran understood what his brother had done. The count had come right only because Jon had omitted himself.
Where will they go? Their mother's dead.
So they left the mother, but halfway across the bridge, Jon pulled up suddenly because he heard something. The 6th wolf pup, Ghost, who it's worth noting, was the first of the pups to open his eyes. Then a little bit later, Jon finds himself at the wall. Pretty ironic, right? A bridge at the wall. He starts by bridging the gap between Sam and his other friends.
He yielded.
But at the wall, Jon is sworn to defend the realms of men from the others, whom at the time they believed to be the wildlings. Jon was raised to believe this because even good people like Old Nan, even someone like her, has deep-rooted biases against the free folk due to pain and suffering that a few of the free folk have caused them over the years. So Jon walks with the free folk, he becomes friends with them, he falls in love with one of them. Yet once he gets back to the wall, he looked down at the free folk caravan and thought, "This is not your land. There is no place for you here. Go away." Ironically, this is the same thing that the Stone Lords say to Jon in his Winterfell crypt dreams, verbatim. "There is no place for you here. Go away." What's funny is that Talisa told Robb that her mother said the same thing about Westerosi as Westerosi said about the free folk.
My mother always told me you Westerosi were a grim lot. Grim, bearded, stinking barbarians that would row across the narrow sea and steal us from our beds.
The Lord Commander was on his way to discovering the truth. Lord Commander J.R. Mormont realized that you don't build a wall 700 feet high to keep savages in skins from stealing women. But it's more than that. The truth is that they aren't savages. As Davos said, they seem like any other men, some fair, some foul. It took Jon some time to see the truth, but he did eventually see it before his brothers at the wall. A nod to Ghost being the first direwolf to open his eyes back at the bridge.
The shield that guards the realms of men.
So finally, Jon realized,
I am the shield that guards the realms of men.
What are these wildlings, if not men?
Maybe we don't need to understand any more than that. Maybe that's enough.
That's when Jon bridged the divide between the free folk and the Night's Watch, and later, among other lords of the realm who had sided with him to take back Winterfell.
Because you are not my enemy. And I'm not yours.
And Jon's bridge was a solid one, a complete bridge, a bridge for all the free folk regardless of past crimes. Jon had not forgotten the heads that the Weeper had left him, but Jon realized that they cannot pick and choose amongst the free folk, saying this one may pass, this one may not. Peace means peace for all. A Song of Ice and Fire is a story about tearing down walls.
He died for us. If we are not willing to do the same for him, we're cowards.
About bridging the gap between different people of different origins, religions, sexual preferences, and lifestyle choices. This is a story about forgiveness and teamwork.
We can learn to live with the wildlings, or we can add them to the army of the dead. Whatever they are now, they're better than that.
So this is not a video about why the wall will come down in Game of Thrones Season 8, and this is not a video highlighting all the clues that tell us that. The wall is going to come down. Those 2 videos coming soon. Hit subscribe. But you can take this video as an intro to both of those. This is a video about the new wall that fans are speculating, the new Dragonglass Wall based off the first Season 8 tease. Walls do serve a purpose.
Who would pass the bloody gate?
The bloody hound.
But there are places like Braavos that don't have a need for walls. Braavos is a city of bridges. Daniel told Arya that their walls are made of wood and painted purple, and he's referring to the city's defensive fleet. Daniel also said, "Our galleys are our walls. We need no other," which is a subtle nod to one of the benefits that comes from free economic trade, aligning people's interests, connecting people, and lessening the odds that they go to war. So good walls make good neighbors? Not really. As we approach the ending of the story, it is very unlikely that they construct any new walls because, thematically, it doesn't make sense.
And now everything is going to change. It is. Why now?
Because now, I am Lord Commander of the Night's Watch.
Their world would be a better place if the people learn from Talissa and leave their walls behind. Sometimes, the best wall is a good bridge.
I blathered on.
I don't want to marry the Frey girl.
I don't want you to marry her. But you needed that bridge. I hope it's a very beautiful bridge.
For 8,000 years, the Night's Watch have sworn an oath to be the shield that guards the realms of men. And for 8,000 years, we've fallen short of that oath. You belong to the realms of men. All of you.
Mag and Gren. Gren and Mag.
Aye. Maybe that's enough.